Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's Reddit stories are from Am I the A-Hole? Story 1 is by Conversation Far 3511. Am I the a-hole for letting my daughter buy her dad a gift from the wrong football team? Can't actually believe I'm writing this post. My ex and I have a 3-year-old daughter. She's amazing and loves her daddy. It was his birthday on Monday, so I let my daughter grab some bits for him. There's a football stall in our local shopping center. They had squeezy balls for each team. My daughter knows that her dad loves football, but also the color blue, so she picked out a blue one for him. I knew it wasn't his team, but there's nothing on the actual ball. It just said the team on the wrapper. She bought it. We left. Everything got wrapped up. We were with him when he opened them. His face fell and he dropped the ball like it burned him when he opened it. His mom gave him the evil eye, so he did the clearly fake "thank you," and then our daughter was disinterested. He was off with me the whole day and last night and called me a B-word for doing that to him. I asked what he meant. He said that I knew he hates that team. I didn't. I used to ignore his football rants. And that he thinks it's crappy that I used our daughter as an excuse to upset him. I explained that she picked it out and he claimed I should have corrected her because he hates that gift. I called him a child. His mom has since texted me apologizing, but in an "even though it's your fault" way. She's usually on my side, so now I'm half thinking it was my fault in some sort of way. I didn't know he doesn't support that team, and my daughter would have been corrected easily, so I probably should have done it anyway. So, am I the a-hole? If you didn't know he didn't like that team, which you admitted you had no idea he doesn't like that team in this post, then why should you have changed something? You didn't know. She picked the color blue because she loves her dad and something football related because she loves her dad. Your ex is a piece of crap and there's a good reason why he's your ex. To be that upset over something his daughter gave him? Who cares if he doesn't like the team? Who cares if he hates the team? It's just a football team, and the fact that some people are so obsessed with football that they hate so vehemently a certain team that they'll throw a gift from their child on the ground is part of what's wrong in the world. If you're that obsessed with the game that you're going to throw your child's gift on the ground that she picked out for you, you have issues and you need to change. This guy is such a jerk. Down in the comments by what I think is supposed to be Little Lion, but it's got an extra L in it. Little Lion, I'm going to call it that. Not the a-hole. I can see why he's your ex. What kind of psycho gets so angry about a squishy football picked out by their 3-year-old? Does he not understand that she's a toddler? The fact of the matter is, she wanted to pick it instead of you. She got it for him because he likes football and the color blue. Who gives a flying fart in space about the team? I love that phrase. Who gives a flying fart in space? She obviously doesn't. Your ex needs to do some work on himself if he can't see the gesture from his own daughter. I'd hate to see what happens when she's older and does something he doesn't approve of. Utterly ridiculous for a grown adult to act that way towards their child. Underneath that by Ill Inspector 7980. I think this dad gets that it's a gesture from his daughter. He doesn't blame his daughter. However, he's a huge jerk because he thinks OP intentionally led her daughter into picking a gift that would rile him up. He's petty. Also, I will never understand how so many women have babies with guys who don't hesitate to call her a B-word. Not because she cheated, not because she hit their child, not because she manipulated things in her favor. Only because she didn't correct her daughter from picking the wrong football team. Lame. If the daughter picked it out, you like it regardless. You say thank you. You don't throw it on the ground. The football wasn't on fire. It didn't hurt. You hold it in your hand and you say thank you. That's it. You move on. Our next story is by Homestuck Stole My Soul. Someone talked down to me, so I got her fired. She was from the HR department. This was back in 2019. I had worked at a call center for 2 years. I took phone calls, trained people, worked overtime. Sometimes they'd even just have me walk around and answer any of my coworkers' questions. They scored our calls and I never received below a 90. Now for Amy. Amy had only been working for about a year. She instantly disliked me because I dress a bit alternative, professional, but alternative. I was on some new medication for my funky little brain, and it didn't react well. It made me more blunt. A customer was arguing with me, saying I was stupid for not giving them a promotion item that was not going on. So I told them flat out that I was right. She started screaming, so I said I'm not taking the abuse and hung up. Seemed reasonable at the time, right? If I was right, there wouldn't be a story. I got called in the day after next. They fired me for hanging up without warning. Edit. My manager was included in all the meetings and they talked to me before HR the day before. Also, a hang up without 3 warnings was an automatic fire. I told them I'm on new meds because I'm bipolar, so they couldn't fire me for that. But they needed paperwork proving I'm bipolar. Fair enough. Then comes 3 months of calling numbers, getting things sent out only to have Amy tell me they didn't receive anything. When we had meetings, she would talk down to me, tell me being good at my job didn't matter because I was only still there because of my excuse with your meds. She even ignored 2 of my managers saying I deserved to stay because I was great at working. She kept on saying my paperwork was lost. Later, we were all working from home, so I decided to move, and she found out, telling me she had to approve it before I did so and that she would approve it. I moved, and about 2 weeks later, she broke me. She had scheduled me for 3 12-hour days in a row, which I said I cannot work those in a row. Amy told me I needed to show up or there would be action taken against me. I got online and started working. At lunch, I logged off and sent an email to everyone, saying that I had great managers and coworkers, and it was a really great job, but sadly I couldn't stay because Amy was making my job rough. I named her in that email, then I logged off and went to sleep. I got a call the next day from the head of HR begging me to come back, saying that Amy decided to leave for a different opportunity and said we could discuss a raise. I said thanks but no thanks and never looked back. Down in the comments by Severe Assignment 943. If you enjoyed everything about it but Amy, and they fired Amy and offered you a raise immediately when you made it clear what was going on, why did you decline? Under that by the OP, I got a better job offering for a few more dollars. Plus it was a call center. It really ruined my mental health. I liked everyone except Amy and the customers. And finally by Scorp123CH. Quoting the OP saying, plus it was a call center, it really ruined my mental health. I also worked at a call center once, way back in 1999. Up to this day, I am extremely allergic to phone calls. I so hate taking phone calls. Every time my phone rings, I almost get a panic attack, blood pressure rising, heartbeat going brrrt. And unknown numbers, I flat out refuse to take calls from those. You're either known to me and in my contacts, and thus your number and contact details will be shown when you call me, or you are not. In which case you have no business talking to me on the phone. Working in call centers can really do weird things to you and your well-being. Just to touch on that slightly, I think that's like everybody. I actually used to work in what would technically be called a bit of a call center. When I was in college, I had a scholarship that required me to do X amount of hours of work at the university for the scholarship. And I was one of those people who had to call people who got accepted to the university and ask them if they had any questions and answer everything I could. And I had these forms in front of me that would answer 90% of questions. If I didn't know the answer, I would say, okay, I actually don't know the answer to that. I'll have to get back to you on it. It was so annoying, and every person, probably 90% of these people, had no desire to be called and bothered at home. They've been accepted to the university. There were very few people who actually wanted to call back. And they asked some questions, and they were great. And there were a lot of people who were just like, who are you? No, I don't need this call, and they would hang up. They were very rude. But that's most people. It's just like being anonymous on the internet. When you're calling somebody and they don't know you, they feel like they can just be rude to you. And technically they can be. It's just different people. It's just different kinds of people. I don't think it's because people work in call centers that they cannot stand getting phone calls at home. It's a pretty common thing. And there are people who love to get phone calls at home. And there are people who get robocalls at home, so they ignore every single phone call that ever comes through. It's just different strokes for different folks. Our next story is by Key Umpire 2215. Am I the a-hole for postponing my vacation with my girlfriend because of my ex? My ex-wife and I divorced 6 years ago. We married really young. She is religious and there was pressure from her family to marry. I was young and dumb and had just left the military with no sense of direction. We were very different people, but it didn't come out as we only dated for 8 months before marrying. It felt very romantic to marry after such a short time, but after we'd moved in together, it was clear we weren't a good match. We stuck it out for 8 years, but it wasn't working, and we were both older, so the whole thing with living miserably to make other people happy her and my parents, didn't appeal anymore. I don't blame her for any of it, and I think we just didn't understand what we wanted at the time and did things to please other people. We had an amicable divorce, and our son lived with her until high school. He is with me for high school because we live near a top school, and she lives in a small town without a good high school. He's supposed to stay summer and holidays with her and come here during the school year. My ex-wife got diagnosed with cervical cancer last month, and it was caught late, so it's already spread. The long-term survival rates aren't great, and I want my son to visit his mother in a week or two before she goes through the hysterectomy. My vacation renews every June 30th. I had saved 2 weeks to go to Hawaii this winter break. However, with this situation, I want to take a week or two and go with my son to be there for him. His mom won't be able to cook and clean for him, and he also wants me there to drive him up to the next city to visit his grandparents. The other issue is my son might have to stay with us for this winter break. He is supposed to go to his mom's, but it's unlikely now depending on her treatment schedule. And I don't want to go on vacation with him home alone with this happening. My girlfriend is not happy because we have winter break set up to go to Hawaii and our flights have been booked. I called the airline and they said they would switch our flights to a later one for $600, which I offered to cover so we could rebook the vacation for next fall instead. But she thinks my son should be able to go back alone and thinks I'm wasting my vacation going with him when we already have plans. My son does go on flights by himself. He's almost 16. However, this time my ex isn't going to be physically able to take care of our son. There are also a lot of things to be done and prep for my son and my ex before she goes through chemo and surgery. My girlfriend is upset I'm prioritizing my ex over her, but I see it as going because my son might lose his mom. You've got it right, OP, and do not let this, for some reason, really selfish person influence your decision on this. You're doing the right thing. You're not prioritizing her. She's not going on a trip to France and you're taking the time from your Hawaii trip to go with her to France. She doesn't see this as a medical emergency. You need to be there to help. Your son is going. He can help. He's not quite 16 yet, and in most states you have to be 16 in order to drive. You might have a learner's permit and be able to go with his mom, but depending on how not well off she is right now, it's better if you're there to help. And rescheduling it for the fall, not a big deal. It costs a little extra money, but you're doing the right thing in this, and I think everyone knows it. I don't know why she's coming off as this selfish, awful person. It sounds to me like she actually might have some issues with you being in contact with your ex at all and helping her out in a situation, going to help her and your son. There's absolutely no reason for it, though. Down in the comments by Punky Brewster's twin. Not the a-hole. You would not be postponing for your ex, you would be postponing for your son. My mother died of cancer when I was 13 and was diagnosed while I was spending the summer with my dad and his girlfriend, now wife. When we got the news, my dad made the plans to immediately drive from Colorado to Ohio and stayed there with me until she passed, even though my stepdad, grandparents, and countless aunts and uncles were there too. Never once was my dad's girlfriend anything but supportive of him being there with me while I was going through the hardest thing in my life. If she had, I can promise you, neither of us would have had anything to do with her ever again. And we would have been 100% correct in that stance. Please hear me when I tell you your son is the only thing that matters right now, and if your girlfriend can't see that, she is not the one. Under that by Novel Fox, quoting Punky Brewster, never once was my dad's girlfriend anything but supportive of him being there with me when I was going through the hardest thing in my life. This right here is all that needs to be said. Your son's mother is dying. Nothing else matters. How is she expecting him to cook and clean and do his own laundry when all he's thinking about is how long his mother has left? That is just cruel. And underneath that by More Pizza 1916, doing that as an adult is hard enough. Thinking about him being on a plane alone, having to find his way from the airport to her house, and then sitting at the hospital alone is heartbreaking. OP needs a real partner who can sympathize. I agree with all of them. It sounds like this girlfriend of yours is not a good person, and she's not the one. That right there is a red flag. Our stories for today have come to a close. Until we meet again, have a special day.